Welcome back to the Orca Boat Shop. My name is Rod, and this is episode 4 on building the little Acorn sailing skiff. So in this episode, I'm going to show how I set up all the forms and aligned everything properly. I installed the forward stem, the rear transom, and the hog on the bottom. So let's get to it. With my large framing square, just going to mark at all the station locations, going straight across. I've cut 9 2x2s at 27 inches wide or long. That's going to span across the strong back. I have determined center at 13.5 inches, and now I'm just going to need to mark a square line across so I can line up this center line on my 2x2s with the center line on my forms. First step in setting up the forms is to set up the 2 forms at each end of the beam and make sure they are perpendicular or vertical to the beam itself. So what I've done is I've screwed down my crossball or my brace across here. I've set a screw in here, and now I'm just going to level this up. And then I can just drive a screw in. The number 1 form and the number 9 form are perfectly plumb and vertical. I've set my laser level down the center line of those 2, and now I'm just going to move about the other forms, making sure, one, that they are square to the beam and on the lines and on center. So I can just tap these here and there, move them. I need to get it onto the line. There, and then move left or right of center, and that's pretty well bang right on there. I'm going to drive my screw in to hold the number 8 station in place. With my number 9 form perfectly plumb to the strong back and the ground held in place with some screws and bracing, I'm now going to make sure that each form is equidistant apart of 14 inches as per the plans. So I've cut these 2x2 spacers to fit inside so that the distance is correct. So if we've done this measured correctly, distance between inside or aft face to aft face should be exactly 14 inches, and that's what we've got. I'm going to continue on down through until all the forms are a solid structure on the strong back. There's just a little bit of different spacing between these 2 center ones here, in that The forms are on either side of the blocks that are holding it onto the strong back, so the distance is a little less between station number, what is this, 5 and 6. I'm also making sure that I've got these spacers in here set down far enough away from the edge, because when I do the planking and need to rivet the planking together, I need to be able to get in there and swing my hammer. So I'm moving sure that these are down far enough away that I should be able to access inside. I lowered the laser level so I can get a vertical level line right through the little brace here that I've made that's going to hold the transom. I've cut the back face of this at 11 degrees. That is the angle of the rake of the transom. I put on a couple of 2x or 1x4s as supports, and this is what the transom will be attached to. I've also calculated from the plans the height of the shear line on these two vertical support brackets, and I've drawn it through the back as well. Therefore I can, or I should be able to, just line this up on the shear line with the marks lining up, and then move this about so this is on the center. Put the center line down the center of the transom, and if I check at the back, yeah, there's some adjustments that just need to be made as height-wise, but you know, this is going to be a little bit of finicky work till I get it vertical, on center, the right height. Now I can look at lining up the inside stem on the bow. So I've again just set my laser up, running it down the form, which is perfectly level, extending that line down to the cross bracing in the front, to which the inside stem will be held to. So I've got a line on center. I know that my stem is 1.5 inches wide, so if I draw a line on 3/4 either side of center, I should be able to make a mark there, and then I can make sure that I line up my stem on those marks and clamp it in place. Probably would help if I actually attached this block in there. It's just been held in there under pressure right now. So with the laser, I know that this line sits exactly on the forward face of station number 1, and then this will just get twisted over so that center line is perfectly down the center, or the laser line is perfectly down the center, which does line up with my marks on the either side of center on the brace on the front here, and that can be clamped in place, and that sits nicely right where it's supposed to. The last piece of the puzzle before I can actually start fairing the hull and attaching any planking is to shape the hog or the keelson that's going to go inside. So we know that this is 2 3/4 wide. I'm going to mark down the center of both sides at 1 3/8. Now there's going to be a taper at both ends, and that comes off of the plans. The very end is 1.5 inches wide, which matches up with the 1.5 inches wide on the top of the stem. So 1.5, I need to go 3/4 either side of center. Station 1, it's still 1.5, which is 4 inches in. I'm just going to make some marks across here. 4 inches in is where the end of the stem will be. So at 14 inches, two and a half is 1 1/4 either side of center. Now if I take my ruler and join these points, I will shape this end first, fit it onto the boat, determine where the other end is on the transom end, and cut that taper next. Should be able to cut this off with a bandsaw and shape with a hand plane. With the hog at the stern end split so that it'll bend much easier, I need to now bring it down to contact and screw into the transom itself, but I need to bevel the top of the transom here to accept the hog. So I would suggest that we're looking at something like that. We'll repeat that bevel to the other side. Then I will join those two lines. Block plane or saw. There isn't really much material to remove. The saw is probably just going to slip off. So. Maybe a bit of sanding here just to clean up some rounded edges. Now sanding is not usually the best way to do this because we tend to sort of roll over when I'm sanding. Most people probably do as well. But if we just take very short little strokes here instead of trying to sand heavily, then it's more likely to stay flat on the surface. To get a really nice fit between the hog and the end of the stem here, I'm going to just do a curve cutting, which is sort of cutting both of them at the same time. Using the saw teeth to create the notch. Then I can tap that forward a little bit. And that's a really nice fit there. Now we're going to clamp that down together. Before I attach these two together with screws, I'm not going to actually glue it together as would be in the plans, because I'm going more of a traditional build in which, you know, maybe this part needs to come off one day. So I'm just going to release this with the keelson out of the way. What I'm doing here is just sealing up both edges of this wood with a very fast drying varnish called Seagold from Pettit Paints. Water based, really nice. Get many coats of varnish on in one day. It does have UV protection, but it's not really the high gloss you'd want, that I don't usually want as a finish coat. But really just to seal this wood up here, and I'll brush on the underside here. When this is hard and dry in a couple hours, then I will screw down the keelson. I will also do it for the tip of the transom. I've done a complete dry run fit, including drilling the screws for attaching the hog or keelson to the stem and to the transom here. Now with the keelson split in half, as I screw it down, I'll be wanting to glue this back together. So I'm just going to brush in some epoxy where I can reach in here while I've got it wedged open. I've thickened up the remaining epoxy with some silica and just some sawdust to match the color a bit. I'm just going to smear that into there. Forgot one thing, I wanted to put a little bedding compound underneath there. On the transom end here, I'm just putting in a single number 10, 1.5 bronze screw. But it's nice to get two in there, but because this is going to be shaped, really I don't want to be cutting in with my edge tools into the bronze screw. Same procedure for the bow. And now that all the forms are set up, it's time to start fairing the hull, which means making sure that all of these battens are running nice and smooth, and then I can get to actually planking. So see you next time. Thank you very much for watching.